and I had this clear as day revelation of, I don't care if I don't make another episode of television, but if I die and I haven't written a book, I am not okay. Like, it was really
Wow, that's profound.
absolutely crystal clear for me.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy and life with yours truly, Michael Kahan. Holy moly, today's guest is fantastic. Sonya is hilarious, reflective, holds a lot of wisdom, plus is full of amazing and reflective stories. I had an absolute blast chatting with Sonya. The chat just flowed so nicely and easily. I also really admire that Sonya's made a transition to full-time writing on top of acting. She's incredibly talented, and I admire her call to action, and the learnings, passions that have come from that is truly unbelievable. I could go on, but I'll let this chat do all the talking. Okay, cool. Let's get into it. Sonya Walger is an actor, author, writer, and podcaster. She most recently starred in Apple's sci-fi series For All Mankind as astronaut Molly Cobb and the horror/thriller New Life. She's also been seen in Amazon's Night Sky opposite Sissy Spacek and J.K. Simmons, and Epic's Get Shorty with Chris O'Dowd and Ray Romano. Sonya's perhaps best known for her role as Penny on the hit series Lost, as well as other series including FLASHFORWARD, The Catch, Tell Me You Love Me, and Mind of a Married Man. Sonya's novel Lion was published in February 2025 by the New York Review Books. Her new novel, Wifehouse, will be published by Union Square Books in April 2026. It will be out in a day or so, and you can pre-order a copy of the book. It's in the episode notes below. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about a love of books and transitioning into full-time writing, Lost, her new book, A Wifehouse, intuition, being invited back to shows, waiting for the phone to ring and empowering yourself, friendships, the power of journaling, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, I'd love it if you would share the podcast around, like, comment, and subscribe, even leave a review. It really helps the podcast grow and helps ensure I can lock in amazing guests like this one. Okay, cool. Thanks so much. Let's get into it. Oh, actually, this could be a good place to start. I was going to save this to later, but I was scrolling through your Instagram and I saw this, and this is really, really awesome. I'd love to know your thoughts about it. But I believe an episode of Lost that you were on called The Constant won Best Episode of the Century. Can you please tell me your thoughts when you saw that?
That is the Lost is just the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, I went in and did. I am the least qualified person to tell you how many episodes I did, but not very many. Let's say less than 15 episodes of a show that was
It may have been
multiple
15.
seasons. Thank you very much. I'm glad you know, because I definitely don't. In fact, we should just preface this entire podcast by saying that any podcast, or indeed any art form that requires me to look back and take some sort of retrospective over my career, is deigned and destined to be a disaster, because I have no memory of anything that I have done. I have to Google my own wedding anniversary.
That's
I have
amazing.
to look up IMDb to see the names of actors I've worked with, not DPs or, maybe third ADs that I've forgotten the names of, like actual act. I am appalling at this.
That's so good.
I just want to issue right now a blanket apology to anyone I love and know that I'm probably going to mangle their names. It is no disrespect to any director or body of work that I've been involved with. I'm definitely going to get some things wrong. Also, I should check right now. Can I swear?
Yes, you can say whatever you want.
Thank fucking God, because I am a sailor. Anyway, so I'm glad we got that out of the way.
I've never heard you swear before, so that's... And
Buckle
I
in.
told you
It's all there. So to preface all of that, that was by way of a preamble to, it is such an honor to find that any work I did, but especially my work on Lost, which felt at the time quite interstitial because I was busy on other shows that I was actually the lead on, to find that this guest star is this moment in TV that people just resonate with and love and keep coming back to, and that there's whole new generations of people that are now that their kids are coming to it. It's genuinely moving. It's humbling and moving, and makes you realize you just don't know what you're putting out in the world, and you don't know when you'll reap the benefits from it. You just don't know when something um, what makes something last. There's just no way of knowing. So it was amazing to me to see that.
That's so wild. And also, like, congratulations to you. Like, as you said, 15 episodes. I have no idea how many episodes were in Lost. I assume around 100, but I could be completely wrong.
A bazillion. Yeah, there were loads of episodes. That's the official number, actually. Is a bazillion.
We'll put that as the top of the podcast so people know that. But also, this was an episode very heavily featured around your character as well. So it's not like congratulations, it's a Lost episode, but it was actually an episode with you. So I think that's like pretty. Like, I know you wrote
it's amazing. It was a two-hander, and I think that was part of the appeal. Honestly, it was just people at long last gave people something they could latch onto in this show about smoke monsters and tears in the space-time continuum. I think everyone was just like, oh, thank fucking God, two people that love each other. Great, let's just settle in and do that. We can actually, sink our teeth into this. So I think it was probably just a moment of respite for a lot of the viewers.
That's hilarious. And I remember at the time when it came out, all my friends, everyone I knew was watching it. I'm like, smoke monsters, what is this crap? It sounded so silly at the time, but I was very young. And then in the last couple of years, I've started watching it and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Why did I take so long?
You see, I still think it's silly, and I've never seen it. So I'm going to take your word. No, this when I was glancing through the questions you were kind enough to send so that I could have some sense of, what you were after. And I thought, now it's going to come out. Now I have no choice but to share the story of how I didn't watch the show, didn't know anybody on the show, got invited to go to Hawaii for the finale, and was realized enough, thank God, at the time that was an honor and that not everyone was being asked, and go to the airport, get on this plane, and they fly you out business, or they used to. I'm not sure that happens anymore. And so I'm at the front of this plane, and there's all these smiles and nods from people, and I'm like, shit, are these fans of the show, or are these people in the show?
Oh, that's so good.
And so then landing at the airport, and so just splitting the difference with just kind, polite smiles, and sort of immersing myself in a book or a show or TV thing, just to avoid having to sort of really face the fact that I didn't know who anybody was. And then last all TV shows, they send a van or a guy, someone to meet you, usually to take you to your hotel. And there's a white van, and I recognize the driver, so that's a relief. But sure enough, most of first class gets on board this van, which means they are all returning cast members. So I'm sitting in the van with my phone, surreptitiously taking photographs of people and sending them to my husband back in LA, saying, quick Google search. Is this Matthew Fox, possibly, that I'm chatting to? Or is it just a random dude that I've befriended? And so that my husband did sterling work back in LA as my sort of, mentor, intelligence officer, seated at home, feeding me my instructions. Oh, it was disastrous and very funny and quite hairy, the whole thing.
Yeah, I have so many questions on this. One, I'll defend you. You're not the first person who has been in a show where they don't know the cast members. That's just, sometimes how shooting is. Sometimes you're in another location. You know all of this, but I'll say this as well. And also, given like Lost and with your character, you weren't so much intertangled with all the other characters as well. But at the same time, it is hilarious, especially when
Yeah.
you're there for this big event and you're just kind
No.
of that, who's this person? You're like, hi, you were so good in that show. And the person could be like, I'm just the caterer. And like, you are doing
No,
a great job.
100%. I just was super, super, super nice to absolutely everybody. I told everybody what an amazing job they'd done, regardless of whether they were costume designers or, in
That's so
fact, the
good.
lead of the show. I just took no chances.
Did you, I assume with, what's his name in real life? I can't remember his, Ian.
Ian, yes,
Would
Ian,
he
I
have been
know.
the one person you had, or was it also broken up
100%.
in?
Oh, thank God. And so Ian, I could definitely go and find and be like, Ian, hold my hand, do not leave my side. And who are all these people? But it was a little while before I met up with Ian, because Ian actually moved to Hawaii and he was living there with his wife and children. It still does to this day. He lives there with his
Ah,
wife, and his boys are grown now. But yeah. So he wasn't on that plane. He wasn't flying in. He wasn't in my hotel. I didn't find Ian until I got to set the next day, and then I was like,
that's.
mate, do not leave my side.
I also had another lovely gentleman, Francois Chow, on the podcast, and he filmed all of it like just via one camera, so he didn't know
Mm,
anyone either, which I found funny.
great.
Is
Yeah.
there nothing to do with Lost? I think I heard
Mm,
this before. Do you've previously mentioned you don't watch much TV? Do you not
mm.
watch yourself because you just don't like TV, or you just don't want to watch yourself? What's the relationship there?
Two separate answers. One is I just don't watch TV. I mean, I really don't. I am such a compulsive reader, and
Mhm.
so there just aren't enough hours in the day for me to read the amount that I want to read. Particularly now, I spend all my time writing. So and I'm quite a dragon about screen time with my children. So, we try not to watch TV in the evenings, unless it's like a movie that we're all going to sit down and watch.
Yeah, nice.
Exceptions are made. Don't get me wrong. We're not living in sort of, Emily Dickinson world or something. My children watch their fair share of Mr. Beast and the Traitors and,
Yep.
important cultural events. Um, but we don't just have it on in the evening. We don't have the news on. We don't just have it running in the background. We try
Nice.
to be sort of vaguely intentional about it. So what that means is that because of that, I am not going to say to them, you can't watch TV, but I get to. So so but it's not really a hardship for me because I just want to read anyway. So we hang out and potter about, and my Billy and I will lie down and watch Gilmore Girls together, and David, my little guy Jake, and I watched the entire of Modern Family because he is a
Whoa.
completist and would leave no episode unturned. I kept being like, you do understand this isn't sequential, right? It's not building to something. You could dive in and out. We could
Yep.
skip some could say a whole season even. Jakey needed to watch every single one in order. Anyway, so there's that piece, which is I don't watch a lot of television, and I definitely feel that I miss out. There are whole shows that I'm like, shit, I've just not seen The Bear, and I haven't caught The Pit, and I haven't, there are things where I'm like, I would love to be more sort of up to date with some of that stuff. And then in terms of myself, it's a tough one to do. I don't love it, but I don't know anyone who loves it. But you have to a little
You'd be
bit just for
surprised.
quality. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, no, not on this
All right.
podcast, but there are some of the, like let's just say you mentioned the screen time with kids, children. We're watching highlights of Mummy, and they'll just have it like,
Wow.
yeah, there are people like that. But sorry, continue.
Wow. No, we haven't. I mean, absurdly, like my children have never seen Lost, for instance, which they're totally ripe for, and we should have done it. If only not because of me, but just sort of culturally, that would have been a cool thing to see.
Yeah.
I just don't even think to do it. When they were little, and I was on that fantastic Apple show for All Mankind, um, that was a great role, and I played the first woman on the moon. It was fantastic. It was a complete career highlight for me, and
Oh, nice.
um, I had this fun sequence on it where I have to rescue someone off the surface of the moon, and I thought that would be quite a fun little clip to show the kids, who were, I'm going to say, 4 and 6 at the time. And I queued it up for them thinking, well, they'll love this. And they both just sat gripped and horrified, absolutely horrified. And then my 6-year-old looked at me with like, tears rolling down her cheeks. Mama, why would you show me that? It was so suspensing. And she was just so appalled that that I would do this to her. And I was like, fuck yeah, totally misjudged that. I thought you'd just like to see mum running around in a suit on the moon. But of course it was incredibly real, and I've got blood running out of my nose and it's all tears coming down my cheeks and stuff. And it was too suspensing. So I've never really bothered showing them anything that I've done.
They'll find it one day. I don't
Oh
know
my
how old
God.
they are, but they'll
They
go
will,
through.
and go, and I can't take care of them when they do. They'll just have to work it out, I'm afraid.
Oh, true. Because you played such a wide range. I've never actually thought about this because I don't have
There's a
kids.
lot going on.
There's any scene, like even said the blood nose, like anything could be interesting from a kid's perspective. How do you, if you do, mentally do that, or you just whatever when it happens, it happens? I can't.
Oh my God, the internet is just, a jungle. If the worst they're coming up against is some naughty scenes of mums, we're in a good place. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many bigger, worse things to worry about, I feel.
Yeah.
But no, they'll find my work eventually or not. And either way, I am so okay with it.
I've got so many questions on this, but I want to go back to you not watching yourself because this has come up a fair bit. What was you studied acting? You've been very passionate about it. You've done a lot. Is the feedback side, do you get it live in the room with the director and the actors, and that's how where the growth and the learning comes from? Because some people will watch and study every aspect, but that can be quite hard because there's so many different angles and they might change things or it's not the same take. So do you find the actual like learning and growth from the acting perspective is live in the room or?
Yeah, it definitely isn't. I mean, I think there are definitely actors who know how to use playback and watch their rushes, what used to be called the rushes and the dailies, in order
Yeah.
to sort of adjust their performances. Uh, I've never been terribly good at that. In that you just sort of feel your way through. It's such an imprecise science. This, there is no um, you're just fumbling in the dark, hoping to do something that you feel in yourself as authentically as possible, which means that it will hopefully resonate with the person that's watching it. And that feeling sense, I don't think you can see it. I think your body knows it. I think your body is your tuning fork as an actor, and
Definitely.
that's what you're hoping to chime and make resonate at a level that will attune with somebody else's. And that to me isn't something that can be seen. But then there are people who can and do. I think it's why one of the many reasons I find, and sorry if this is going off topic, but
Yeah.
it's one of the many things I find so sad about the fact that we audition remotely these days, that we all are doing this in our private little dark rooms, at best with someone we've paid to read with us, at worst alone or with your
It's tough.
reluctant husband or kid or whatever it is, or
Yeah.
some app. Um,
Yeah.
and the lack of having that tuning fork, the lack of the missing resonance of another person who you're watching and micro reacting to, um and who you're getting feedback from in the truest sense of that word. I don't just mean a round of applause or yes, you've got the job. I mean the human interaction of the micro nod, the flicker, the welled eye, the um that's that's what to be in conversation is. And if art isn't a conversation, I don't know what it is. So I feel very I feel the loss is profound to the art form to have put us all in rooms on our own making tapes.
I agree 1,000%. I'm not an actor by any means, but I remember, actors talking about this. I didn't quite get it because not being quite on that side. And then I got offered, luckily it didn't work out, it's all good, a TV developmental deal. And I was going to go
Mm,
to LA, then maybe to London. And they were talking
mm,
about how it would all be online. And obviously you can
mm,
still write and create online, but it's not the
mm,
same. And I'm like,
mm,
part of the reason I'm doing the writing and also hopefully show running one day, like that's my big goal, would be to be in the room, to see how people respond, to feel it. Like you feel the energy of the room. And I was like, this just sounds awful. Obviously, there are going to be times where you need to do this. But if I can't be in the room at all at any time, like this isn't going to succeed. It's not the reason why I'm doing it as well. So I fully agree with you. And as an actor as well, you're sensing things as well. You're also playing to the reader or the people in the room. I find it very challenging, just even the concept of it. So I don't know how you manage, and what, maybe some of the skills you've done, or is it just you do it, switch off onto the next one, because it's a bit
Yeah, you
removed.
do it. Yeah, I mean, there's no alternative. I mean, at any chance I get to get in a room with someone, I will do it. Um, but it's increasingly so. You know, it feels like just this smaller and smaller little sliver of my life, the acting, now that I write all the time. So I'm just extremely grateful that it's not what I'm sitting at home waiting for. I'm not living day to day for that next audition. It's not. That was my life for so many years, and I just don't miss that at all.
Can you tell me about that? Because that's also such a foreign concept to most people. Because with most art, like as a writer, I can create my own. I know you've also done writing as well. But as a painter, you paint your own stuff. But as an actor, yes, you can go out and create and all of that stuff. But you are mostly, I've heard people say most of acting is waiting for the phone to ring. And to me,
Yeah.
yeah, no, go on. What sprung to mind?
No, it is. It's also, it gets harder and harder instead of easier and easier. I think in your 20s and 30s, you're still childish enough that you're used to other people telling you what to do, or to some degree you're still conditioned, or you're still unconditioning yourself from that state of that there are people and an expected uh, hierarchy of people that you're going to defer to, right? You've spent 18 years, maybe 21 years going to schools, going to college, going to having people tell you where you need to be and what you need to
Yeah.
be doing next. And you've had parents that maybe have been formative in that way. And then you spend the next 50 years of your life, God willing, undoing that programming and being like, but what do I want to do? What do I want to make? What can I create? What can I do that doesn't require someone else telling me, giving me permission to do it? So acting becomes this weirdly protracted state of adolescence that we agree to live in, where, I found myself in aged, I mean, I will say this, I have, for my entire acting career, made other things constantly. I have written scripts, I have written short stories, I have created a podcast, I have written movies. Like, I have never ever just sat at home waiting for the phone to ring, because I'm too stubborn and too impatient and too, I just can't do it. I can't fucking do it. And then, 5 years ago, I really made the decision that I was just going to write books from now onwards. And if the phone rang, great, fantastic, I would step aside and take the call. But I was not stepping aside for anything else. So now, I write full time. I write 7 days a week. I'm working on my
Oh, I
third
didn't know.
book. Yeah, very
Yeah.
much so. The auditions, I maybe audition like a few times a year these days. I'm just like, the, as I say, the phone's there, but I'm not chasing it down. Um, anyway, I lost my thread. I forget what I was saying.
Well,
I was saying something else.
while it comes back to you, I just think that's
Yeah.
so awesome in that you've empowered yourself, because you can kind of feel like a slave or a victim. These are various different words I've heard guests say. Like,
That was exactly it. That was my point, was that to get to this age of being, I think I was 45, 46 at the time, and just it was COVID, and really being at home, really having to settle into, being a mom, raising these two kids, teaching them online, teaching my
all
little
of
guy
the
to
stuff.
read, like
Yeah.
managing all of this, and thinking this is so strange to have all this agency, to be such a grown up, running a house, teaching my children, feeding them, whatever it is, dealing with my husband, with whatever shenanigans we're dealing with, finances, all of this. And yet then there's this, as I say, this sort of tiny, undeveloped, childish part of me that's still waiting for the phone to ring. It just felt like it like a just weird failure to grow up in this one area. And it just made me be like, I'm done. I'm just done with this. You have permission to make art attitude. So that
Oh,
was it.
and why the word childish? That's a very unique word.
Because it feels really infantilizing. It feels really infantilizing to surrender all control in one area of your life, one seminal area of your life, to someone else. To just be like, yeah, you tell me when I can do it. And when you're so busy telling everybody else what to do, and you're managing your kids, and you're, curating and creating this life for yourself, but then you're going to surrender all agency for it when it comes to your career, it just feels like this is completely fucking upside down and wrong.
And what was that feeling like when you decided to transition into writing?
Well, I think like anything, nothing happens overnight that I can think of, or nothing of value. It's slow, it's gradual. As I say, it was COVID. My dad had died very suddenly a year before, and I felt, or 2 years before, and I felt so sort of grief stricken, and also heartbroken that my children weren't going to know my dad, and that they didn't, that all these extraordinary stories and this misadventurous life was just going to disappear. And so I started writing Lion, my first book, um, in order to kind of get all of those stories down. And it really began as a Word document of little bits and pieces that were for my children. And then as
Oh,
COVID rolled on, and I realized I'm a journal keeper. I've kept journals
yeah.
my whole life. And, it felt like there were things to commemorate about this thing I was living through as well. It's not a book about COVID in the least bit. It was just provoked by the time that we all had in that moment.
Yeah.
Um, and so there was Lion by the end. And I felt like, oh, well, this is maybe worth shopping around. And I got an agent, and it, got picked up by New York Review of Books quite quickly, which was amazing.
Oh, sorry for interjecting.
Yeah.
The story of Lion is crazy to me. And the way that you've done it is so unique. You're a very talented writer. And I've
Thank
got
you.
so many questions on this. I'm probably going to go back and
Mm.
forth and types
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
things with
Sure.
acting
I've
because
jumped around so
no,
much.
no, no, because your story's so unique from the acting side when you've got like, I know you were doing writing and all the other stuff in the podcast before, but to me, it's such a unique transition as well. I've
Mm.
already forgot my train of thought. Oh, but with Lion, what a unique, first of all, I think when you got your agent or your manager, they gave you no notes because it was that good. Like that's the craziest, that surely your ego was just like, oh yeah, I've done something great. And then on top of that, I'm throwing a lot at you. Um, I'm very sorry that you lost your journals to the fire, but luckily
Mm.
you did get to write it, go through
Mm.
the journals as well. And because you
Mm.
mentioned your memory's so bad at the start of the podcast, so I'm
Totally.
glad you got to.
Yeah.
But how cathartic, and maybe tell us a little bit about Lion as well, but how cathartic was it going through the journals, not only writing about your dad and your childhood and your upbringing, and also the other relationships that are intertwined in that book, but how cathartic
Mm.
and healing was that for you going through it?
I don't know if it was cathartic actually. It was so much as it was a really interesting process to pull my journals down. And as I say, it was, give or take 27 years worth of journals that I'd carted around from house to house, and thought to myself, what on earth am I doing with these things? And I really hope my children don't read them one day, because they don't make for good reading. And
Yeah.
I'm not terribly proud of it. But yeah, as I say, I began by writing these notes down about my dad, and then I realized that my memory's so shit that I should probably go to my journals and just see if there were other things that had happened that I had definitely forgotten about. And so I pulled them all down, and I treated them like textbooks, in that I pulled my highlighter out and I just highlight anything that felt relevant, and put little post-it tabs on those pages, and went through all of them one at a time, put them in chronological order, and then did that. And then went back and sort of pulled quotes, if you will, from that, and started amassing a Word document where it was just like, that happened, oh that's a good line, oh that was, oh yeah, I forgot, feeling lonely sitting in a cafe in Buenos Aires, these things. And and so those became, and I've used this analogy before, so forgive me, I haven't come up with a better one yet, but these became like these tiny little clay beads that I had that I sort of kept in a jar, and the desktop file was literally called Jar of Beads. And I would take a sentence or a memory or whatever it were, a little paragraph, and then I would work it like a sculptor works their clay. Like I would warm it up and sort of try and breathe into it and close my eyes and try and imagine another thing that had happened, or what it smelt like in that cafe, or whether the jacarandas were in bloom, or whatever it was, and just try and expand it a little more. Um, and reach for the edges of each one of these moments, and then, that was how it sort of gathered. And then the last piece really then became how to organize it, because I knew I didn't want to write a biography. I definitely didn't want to write a memoir. I didn't want anyone selling this as, Penny from Lost tells all. Like, it would just, none of this was of interest to me. I'm a, as I say, I've been a reader my whole life. I revere literature. I studied it at Oxford. It's the art I care most about. It's the art I think is the supreme one, possibly with music as the other exception. But
Ooh.
I don't understand music in the way that I understand literature. So I have wanted to write a book for years. I think this was the other thing that happened during COVID, was feeling
Your
like,
podcast.
yeah, I just was like, I don't want to interview any more writers. I want to be one. And, when in those dark moments at the early COVID, where we were all like, fucking hell, are we all about to die? Is that what's happening? And I had this clear as day revelation of, I don't care if I don't make another episode of television, but if I die and I haven't written a book, I am not okay. Like, it was really
Wow, that's profound.
absolutely crystal clear for me. And so Lion came about like that. And was it cathartic? Not in the moment. In the moment it felt just very structural, very like, I need to weave this together, I need to factor this in. Reading the journals was often quite boring and quite repetitive, and I was like, God, wow, I really wanted a boyfriend. Wow, I really wanted a job. That was just the same things
But that's
over and
almost
over.
cathartic in a sense, seeing that you've grown and evolved. Like from that sense, you're like, oh,
Yes.
I'm not quite that person anymore.
Yes, that's true. I felt very much in relationship to that girl. I didn't read her being like, who is this? But I did also want to wrap my arms around her and be like, it's gonna be okay. It's all gonna work out.
Oh, that's nice.
But yeah, so it sort of but then when Lion was done, and when Lion was done, and when I mean done, I mean just finished as a Word document on my desk, I remember going into Davey, my husband, and saying, if this is never published, if this never sees the light of day, I am so okay with it. I did the thing I set out to do, and I really mean it. I do not.
Wow.
It is okay that this exists, and it's okay that Billy and Jake will get to read it one day. So then to have it published, and published by NYRB, who are just the most beautiful, elegant publishers in the world, I just was more than I could have dreamed of. It really was.
That I've got 10 billion questions here, so
Go
we'll
for
see
it.
how we go.
Throw them at me.
And I'll also talk about the book that's coming out, and I know you're writing a third book, and then we're going to type some stuff from the start of the podcast. But when you saw the hard copy for the first time, by the way, beautiful cover, what was that moment like when you actually physically see the book?
Yeah, it's unbelievably moving. I mean, there is something about when you've been in a medium that is so collaborative, that you can only do with the support of hundreds and thousands, potentially thousands of other people. Nobody's making a TV show on their own, so you can't do it. You watch all these actors, it's awards season right now, and they're all saying, they're if they're worth their salt anyway, they're thanking their co-stars, they're thanking their director. They're not standing there taking a prize for anything they did on their own. But you write a book, and I'm sorry, but you fucking did that on your own.
Yeah.
They, not to diminish the publisher or the editor who graciously paid you and put it into the world, but it is it is a feeling of accomplishment that I have never experienced the like of in all my years of acting. To
Oh,
look at my finished books. I just got my box of Wifehouse books, so I just have one that just arrived literally yesterday,
do you have
and
one
I've
next to
got
you
them.
and you can flash
I
it up?
do. I've got them both here. I've got um, a little. So to be able to like show you two books that I have written. There's Wifehouse and
Amazing.
there's Lion.
Oh,
And
that
be
looks,
like,
yeah.
I did that. I did that thing. It's a really, really amazing feeling. Like it just it's a really fucking amazing feeling. I can't be more articulate than that.
No, it's
It's like
amazing. Can you put the
um
books back side by side? I just want to
yeah.
test the theory. They're on top of each other. And then show me the. Yes. Okay. Sorry, I was interjecting you. Then I'll tell you my theory, which is probably not a theory anymore. Looks
Well,
great.
you can tell me.
Do they, for the second book, make your name bigger because you've?
No, they're completely different publishers. So this is NYRB, New York Review of Books,
Yep.
who publish, 4 books a year or something. And this is Union Square, who are a much bigger publisher. They're one of the big five. They're owned by Hachette. They are, Barnes and Noble. This is their publishing company. And so no, it's the size of the everything is a complete beginning and end all unto itself every time you publish with someone new.
Okay. I had a theory where the first book you do, because I've seen this before, but no one's ever said this, where the name is a little bit smaller on the side. I forget what it's
Uh-huh.
called. And then the
Yeah.
second time it gets bigger, and then at one stage it's just because I've also got like,
It's just your name.
yeah, there's no title. You have to get like a microscope. What?
It's funny.
Yeah. And okay, once again, a bazillion questions, but from the writing perspective, because I love this. Can you tell me? I know with Lion, for example, I think you wrote the first chapter just kind of came out of you. So I'd like to know a bit about the flow state. Is that something you think about, you're aware of, how you put pen to? Yeah.
Yeah, it's really different from each book. I mean, now that I'm writing book 3, I'm like, oh, right, this is why people have lots of children. It's fascinating to see what you put in the test tube and what comes
Yeah.
out every time. Like there is absolutely nothing that prepares you for the next book. You're only an expert in the book that you're writing. I'll speak for myself.
Interesting. Yeah,
I was
yeah,
an expert in Lion, and then all of that was completely laid to rest because I started writing Wifehouse, which is a completely other book, nothing to do with my dad, nothing to do with anyone in my family, a complete work of fiction and of my own imagination, and a much more, in some ways, conventional timeline of order of events. But that said, I still jumped around enormously. But it's a bit like, I don't know. I'm not a mountaineer, but I'm guessing, scaling K2 is not the same as scaling Everest, is not the same as
yeah.
scaling the front of El Capitan. Like, yeah, you probably need the same gear, but you're going to get up there a completely different way.
Yeah.
Um, and now that I'm writing book 3, which is again completely different period set between the wars in England, it's a whole nother book again. I'm like, how does anyone do this? I mean, you wouldn't believe that I'd written and published 2 books, because I'm like, this is really hard. This is
And
really hard. I don't know how to do it.
it's so interesting because book 1 and book 2 are so different, and the way that you've
Yeah.
gone about it is so different as well. Because normally, like, people might write the exact same genre, so there can be like some aspects that are similar, but this is so unique. So I admire you for like tackling something very different, because you could kind of like write what you know. That's what people always say, but
Yeah.
you've just, you just write what seems to inspire you. Is that kind of the case?
I think so. And I think also, you can't help but bring what you've done for the last 40 years with you. I mean, as an actor, you pride yourself on your diversity and your ability to produce different roles. At least I always have tried to reinvent and not repeat and not, um, you know, I, I mean, we're all typecast to a degree, but I've played a pretty great wide range of people, and I think, having this whole second career later in life, I feel like I just want to I just want to stretch out. I'm like, well, I don't know, maybe I'll try detective, maybe noir. I don't know. Should I write it in verse? I don't know. Like, I feel like, I mean, I'm not necessarily doing any of those things, but why not? What's to stop me? It's this, the novel is this gloriously um fecund form. It can be whatever you want it to be. It can be as short or as long or as baggy or as taut as you want it to be. So why would you not keep trying? And maybe some will be better than others, but I just relish the opportunity to like try it all out.
That sounds quite freeing in a sense because you can be, I don't know if the right word is limited as an actor, as you said,
Yeah,
pigeonholing to all degree. And you one of the rare ones where it seems like it's impacted you one of the least, where they're kind of like, this is your lane. I've heard many actors who like want to get into comedy and the agents and the casting director goes, no, you don't do comedy, you do drama, you're that person. And now you
right.
don't have to abide by any of the rules. As you said, you get to create it. Whatever comes to you, you get to create. So to me, that's like
Yeah,
quite freeing. There's no
yeah,
rules. No one can tell you what
yeah.
to. No gatekeepers.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. I think the um, I think I'm reveling in all the freedom that being a writer affords. That includes not being an actor, and it also includes, Wifehouse is written from multiple perspectives. Getting to play all the parts, that is a fucking joy, man. That is
Yeah.
amazing, because I can't tell you how many shows I've been on where I'm like, I just want to be his role. I do
Oh
not
yeah.
want to be over here at the bottom of the stairs yelling for my, recalcitrant teenager who won't get out of bed. I want to be the guy in the car chasing the dudes down the street. Like, it's, and so, Wifehouse, where I inhabit, or if you like, I play the role of everyone in the story. It's told from multiple perspectives, and that just felt so delightful. It really did. And my mum read it the other day, and she
Oh,
said, "Oh,
cool.
it's so fun. It's like seeing you." She said it was like watching you act, but seeing you sort of through the veil of all these different roles. And I felt like, yeah, I'm so glad you see it that way, because they're all me. The 14-year-old girl, the 56-year-old bullish actor, the frustrated Argentine director, the tearing her hair out housewife, the frustrated short story writer who's French. They're all me. They're
Yeah,
all,
all aspects.
yeah.
Do you, and this is just purely the screenwriter in me, with book 1, 2, and 3, have you considered, has there been opportunities to turn them into a TV show or a movie? Is that something?
Yeah, I've had a couple of people sort of say to me, "Oh, Lion would be such a wonderful movie," and then
Mm,
someone, my husband's a screenwriter, and I think someone asked him the other day if the rights were still available. I mean, the short answer is the rights are available. I have no interest in turning it into a movie, but if someone would like to, they're welcome to. Um, and Wifehouse, I think, has a more sort of obvious and straightforward appeal. I think it would be a great miniseries or a movie. I think it would do very well. I didn't write it for that,
yeah,
um, and I've also done this. I've been in this world so long. The idea of willingly uh, sort of
shopping around.
enslaving myself to Hollywood again just feels like exhausting. So I have literary agents whose job it is to make that happen. If it
Smart.
happens, great, and if it doesn't, I'm very busy with book three. I'm just not going to sit again waiting for
Yeah,
that
and
phone
wait.
to ring.
I love the switch mentality. I've got two questions. One, we can skip this bit because it has been ringing in my head. I have not thought of this book for many years. I might get the name wrong. I read it at
Hmm.
school. A Year of Wonders. Did you ever read that book?
It rings a bell. Why would I
I
know?
don't know
Yeah,
why. It's
maybe.
just been screaming in my head to bring it up. I
Hmm.
also thought that
Hmm.
I know you have transitioned, but I feel like that'd be a great turn that into a script. But I don't know
Hmm.
why it's come up. I just thought I'd bring it
Yeah,
up. But
funny. Yeah.
very interesting. And with the it's, once again, so many questions. Going back to your podcast, you've spoken to so many amazing people. Did you ever think at the
Hmm.
start of your podcast that you'd be able to achieve all of this and more?
No, my God, not at all. I started the podcast because I love reading, and I'm married to someone who is the most wonderful human being, but he doesn't read books. And if you told me I was going to marry someone that I couldn't tell about,
Yeah.
that we couldn't talk books about, I'd have just laughed. And similarly, he's an incredible musician, and I can't hold a tune. So we've somehow
The
managed
yin and
to
the yang.
pick the exactly.
Yeah.
And yet here we are, 20 years later, very happily married. So it's all worked out. But
Nice.
to some degree, I think what I was hankering for when I created Bookish, which was a podcast about where I invited interesting people to talk to me about the 5 books that had shaped them most. So, not their favorites, not their desert island ones, but the 5 that had been sort of really formative to who they were. I think at some level I was trying to recreate some sort of semblance of what I had at Oxford, which was these, amazing scholars and minds and or stone students also, who we just sat around and we talked about books all the time, and
Oh,
I
how nice.
I just missed that. And so to curate these conversations with people where and really going from all walks of life, from the mayor of LA to an astronaut to
Yeah.
great writers, um Rory Stewart, all kinds of interesting politicians, all kinds of people. It was a fantastic and amazing opportunity to get to have these conversations. And I would try, where possible, to read all 5 of the books beforehand. And if not, if I couldn't read them because they were, some of them were huge sort of tomes, then I would make sure I'd read around them. So they were properly wonderful conversations. But, as I say, I think that it's also as you know better than anybody, it's an enormous amount of work. It really is. You need a dedicated producer, and you can't, there's not really room to do much else. You've mentioned wanting to showrun, and you've mentioned writing scripts, and I'd
Mm.
love to know how you're fitting that in around the many, many, many guests that you have.
Yeah.
But for me anyway, it came to the point where I did season 3. I was interviewing Douglas Stewart, who just won the Booker Prize for
Yeah.
Shuggy Bain. Beautiful book. And I just loved that podcast, that episode. It was a real standout for me personally, as listening to an author talk so thoughtfully about what had made him the writer that he is. And I just had this, again, this sort of revelation listening to him of, I want to be him being asked about my favorite books. I don't want to be the interviewer anymore. Um,
How
and I still
nice.
get asked if I do the podcast again, and I would if someone else did all the legwork and all I had to do was show up and do this, because I
That's
loved that
great.
part. But
Yeah.
the emailing and the procuring and the dealing with agents and all of that was a fucking nightmare, as you well know.
No comment. I've never had that experience whatsoever, but
Everyone's delightful. Well
yeah,
done.
I understand. I've had actually a few people be like, we should do a podcast together. I'm like, I'm not editing, I'm not sending
Yeah.
emails, I'm not dealing
Nope.
with anyone. I
Nope.
show up and that's it. But also, and I've heard you talk about this as well, I'll keep on talking, don't worry. With your podcast as well, a lot of people can view a successful podcast as purely views and money and all of that stuff, which is nice. But how you've spoken about is what you've gained, what you've learned, who you've spoken to, the joy that it gave you. And yes, it might not come back, but to me, that was a huge success because I've heard people previously, talk about someone else who has started a podcast and maybe they've only done 10 episodes and like, oh, I can't believe they only did 10 episodes. And I'm like, I can't believe they did 10 episodes. Like putting yourself out there. I think that's
Totally.
amazing. And so
Yeah.
when you look back at it, this is a very loaded question. Well, one, I think it's so amazing that you got all of these things. I hope you're very proud of what you've been able to not only do for yourself, but also put out to the world as well. Do you ever reflect back on it and think about
That's
it?
such a nice thing to say. What a lovely thing to say. Probably not proud enough. Maybe I don't know. That's not a thing I spend a lot of time doing or being. But I was proud of my books. That felt clean and uncomplicated. And the podcast, I felt, as I said, as you rightly sort of, I think, single out. It enriched me enormously, and then I got lovely feedback from people that did listen to it. All 12 of them seemed to thoroughly enjoy the podcast. My mum and all her friends. I don't know. I don't and never have try or have tried always not to. I just don't use metrics that I think are sort of universally agreed on as measures for success. Lion, for instance, I said to my lovely agent Mia, I said, I never want to know the numbers for Lion. I don't want to know. You can, I mean, send me the checks by all means, but I don't want to know who. I don't want to know how many people have bought it. I don't want to know. It will. There is no number that will feel good enough. If you tell me 400 people read it, that's going to feel terrible. If you tell me 4,000 people read it, it's still going to feel terrible. If you tell me 4 million people bought it, maybe now we're talking. But even so, there's a billion people on the planet and only 4 million read it. Like,
Yep.
so none of that to me is the metric for success. And I think it's something to get really clear on in one's career sort of quite early, is what are you going to use as your barometer? Because it better be internal, or because the world is never going to give you enough. I'll speak for myself, never going to give me enough.
I agree. Well, not for you, but
So
yeah.
yeah.
That's so interesting because I assume you've had a big shift, as any person in the world has, especially in the creative arts, where I don't know what your metric was, but maybe a metric for success was how many seasons am I going to be on? How much money am I earning? How many
Mm,
lines? Blah, 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 all of those things.
mm,
Is it a nice transition now to see that it's more internal? I know that we're talking about books compared to like film and
mm.
TV, but there still would be a big shift about how you feel, the accomplishment that you've got.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it is. Now, that said, I've had the enormous good fortune to write two books, and both have been published. That's not normal.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't assume that that is that book three will that will happen. I hope it does, but I don't presume on that. But I also can't know anything other than what I know, if you know what I mean. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
as an actor, I worked really, really hard, and I worked in sort of regional theatre and tiny little BBC jobs, and built up towards this career. Um, I didn't burst on the scene with an indie film and never look back. I've been a steadily working actor for my whole life, which is in itself a privilege, an amazing thing to do. Is it the career I dreamt of in the shower with my Oscar acceptance speeches? No, it is not by a long stretch. But there are maybe 12 people in the world that have that career, and even then even then there are ones that got away and that haunt them and that someone
Yeah.
else picked up the prize for. So um I think it just goes back to what we were saying, that your metric for success better be positioned deep inside you, and be rock solid in that regard. And if I can write a sentence that sits on the page and that feels true in my body, that's a good day.
Oh, I love that. And do you think when you first finished college or uni, I forget what you guys call it, because I know you then moved to America.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would have had this perspective now?
No, not at all. God, age 22, I was ravenous. I was just like, fucking tear it all down. Give me the jobs. I need the things. I say that. I also journaled. I also have always been introspective. I've also, I think at some level, known that this was quite a hollow game that I was climbing into, and um, that I mean, I think in the back of my head, I've always known that literature is where it's at and what I really respect and revere. And I've been the person for my whole life that people have come to for a book recommendation. My whole life I have had that has been the letter or the email or the phone call or the text for what should I read next. Nobody's come to me saying what should I see next, but everyone
Yeah.
comes to me asking what I should read next. And there comes a point in your life where you have to pay attention to what you're actually where your expertise actually lies.
That's brilliant. And I want to tie up, I think, two more points on acting, because once again, I think it really ties into this beautiful transition into what you're doing now.
Mm.
From the rejection side, this is, I think it's a quote, or you said something like this: nothing prepared me for rejection and auditions coming straight out of uni. Because, at
Mm.
uni, you can play a whole range of roles and it's a
Totally.
completely different. How did you cope? Because I found that very unique, especially where we're at.
I think I'll go even further and say that I went to these very academic schools my whole life, and to a very academic boarding school that prepped me hard to get me into Oxford. I had so much sort of support and extra teaching and the whole thing. Um, and then you get to college, and I worked my ass off because I was told I could get the first class degree if I worked hard, and so I did, and I worked really hard, and then I got it. But there was this very predictable channel that I moved through from age 3, to be honest, right? That and spits you out the other end, and then I leave university, and I've amazingly managed to get myself an agent while I was still at Oxford. So it
Oh,
felt like,
yeah.
right, here we go, did it, nailed it, and there we are, right on track. And then it was just crickets. It was just this free fall with occasionally the phone would ring and he'd send me out on an audition, but not every day, and certainly not 4 times a day, which was what I was used to, which was this highly structured sequence of events, and I had things to work towards constantly because there was always an essay that had to go in, or books that had to be read, or a rehearsal that I was running to, and my time was tight at Oxford. And then I left, and then I just remember being like, are you, this is it, this is adulting, this is this it was just silence, just an absolutely deafening silence from the world, until I booked my first crappy theatre job and crawled off to Sheffield and went and did that. But being like,
Yeah.
um okay, pretty sure this is not what I thought it was going to be. I thought there would be lights, I thought there'd be cameras, thought I'd be,
Money.
a couple of magazine shoots, like didn't think it was going to be this. And that went on for a while. And it was, I mean, humbling is the least of what it was, but it was important and great and a
Ah,
corrective. And it went
corrective.
on. Yeah, definitely, I think a corrective from the um assumption that life carried on in this very predictable, ordered way, and it just didn't, and doesn't.
That's a big
And the
shift.
sooner you
Yeah.
learn that, I think the better. And also, most of my friends had, gone into jobs that were much more sort of reliable, hierarchical, shall we say. There were a couple of us that went into acting, but most of my friends went into jobs that had a studied career path, and so they were off. They were off and earning, and I was in my mum's nursery school, being like, "Can I read to the children again?"
Oh, it all ties back. That I get that. I used to be an accountant. Most of my friends are accountants, lawyers, finance. I get it as well. And
Yeah.
last thing on the acting, I also find this really interesting that you kind of have this secret skill. I could be wrong, but with Lost, maybe for all of mankind, or it could have been the Sarah Connor Chronicles, that you were originally only meant to have a few episodes, and then obviously your character, won
Uh,
the hearts of the producers and the writers. Can you expand on that? Because that's very rare. Normally, this is 2 episodes. You get 2 episodes, and then it seems to be a
this is
special
this
skill.
is. I love that you single this out. This is my secret skill, and it is my secret advice to every time I've ever been asked to give actors advice. I usually don't have much, but one of them is there is no such thing as a guest star. There is absolutely no such thing. Um, I think and I don't even say this in the way of like, go in and milk it and work it and you never know what happens. I just mean, like, nobody thinks they're the guest star in their life. You're the star of your life. I'm the star of mine, right? We just happen to be here having a conversation, but you're going to leave and carry on with your day and your friendships and your relationships in the full working knowledge that you're starring in your experience of your life. And you better bring that as an actor to whatever piece of work you're doing. You better bring that person who is living a full realized life into that room, and then is going to leave and carry on with it when that door closes behind them. And I think um, I've been very lucky, but yes, it has happened over and over that I mean, Molly Cobb exactly was written for 3 episodes, and I ran for
Oh,
three
yeah, that's right.
seasons. Um, definitely Sarah Connor Chronicles, also Lost. I think there've been a couple of others actually too, but I'd have to IMDb myself to know. But yeah, I think the just only a it's first of all, it's just foolish to go in assuming it's only one, because nothing is set in stone. I'm married to a scriptwriter. I'm the first to tell you that they love writing for people that are excited to be there and are bringing something. But also, you
Nice.
get so much more out of it. You get so much more out of it if you come in imagining that there's this whole realized world that you're bringing in, or unrealized.
And what is that feeling like? I know you've got this great mentality, but to see 3 episodes, the end of the 3 episodes, and you get that call, that email, whatever, and being like, "We actually want you back." Like that must be a pretty amazing feeling, knowing that you.
Yeah, it's a nice feeling. I mean, again, it's so how you choose. It's like anything, isn't it? It's just you choose how to. It's about that goes back to this idea of what's your metric, right? Because there's one world where you can listen and be like, yeah, but am I a series regular? Like, do you want me for? Why don't give me a contract then for the whole thing? That's the metric that's exterior, right? That's the one that says, all right, but this is only valuable if you give me X. And
Yeah.
then there's this sort of, hopefully, this sort of nascent or maybe fully mature metric, which is, oh, beautiful, I get to go back and do my work again for however many times, but I get to go back and do it again.
That's really interesting. On the other end, when shows don't go ahead, maybe you think you're going to get another season or more
Mm.
episodes or whatnot. How do you deal with that?
It's interesting. I was thinking, just sort of prepping for you and this show, and I was thinking, what are the failures? And I really resist the word, actually. I don't use it ever, really. I don't
Nice.
think in life. It's not a word I use. And so I was like, all right, well, let's unpick your resistance to the word. What is that about? Um, and if you don't want to use the word failure, then what is the word that sort of sits with you? Because they certainly haven't all been successes. Um, but I was thinking, I did a show here called The Mind of the Married Man. That was the show that brought me here, and that was an HBO show, and I was 26, I think, and it ran for a couple of years. It was great. I loved it. It was misguided and would never get made now, but it was a sort of male version of Sex in the City, but with married men instead of single women. Anyway,
Okay.
um, it was kind of great, but as I say, completely cancelable now.
Yeah.
Um, and then straight off the heels of that, I got this show called Coupling, which was a remake of a very, very successful English show with Jack Davenport and all these. It launched many, many careers in England, and the Americans had brought it over here, and they were psyched. NBC was like, it's the new Friends, and Friends was just coming off the air or had just finished, and
Wow.
and I get piped into this cast, and there's six of us, three guys, three women, and they've shot the pilot and they fired some of them, and so I'm part of the recast, and it's this huge deal, and my agents are like, this is amazing, you've so great, it's the perfect right next job. And I'm like, it's not that funny, but okay. And I'm new in America. I've only been here a couple of years, and the 2 years that I've been here, I've been on the show that I was already doing. And I'm like, all right, well, the people are terribly nice, so okay, we'll just muddle through. And it's a sitcom in front of a live studio audience with gags, proper gags. And I'm like, okay, this is different. I'm used to doing sort
Yeah.
of indie English or whatever HBO TV. This is a different skill set, but I guess I can do this. And then and then we're put out into the world, and we're squeezed onto Good Morning America, and we're on couches doing interviews, and I'm quietly dying. I'm just quietly dying because I'm like,
Don't blame you.
I'm. I think this show is crap. I think I'm crap in it, and I'm not sure why we're all here, like hyping this thing for the new Friends when it's not the new Friends. It doesn't know what it is. It's all about sex, and Americans don't have sex on television, or at least in those days they were not having sex. And in England, everyone was having sex on TV and getting laid in the pub and nipping home for a quick shag. And yeah, the Americans are quite puritanical, actually. And again, I'm talking about pre-internet days. It
Yeah.
was not it didn't. Anyway, unsurprisingly, it disappeared after about 12 minutes. I think it lasted 6 episodes.
Oh wow.
And it was the only show I've done that hasn't made it, that got cancelled that quickly. I think, again, please check my IMDb, but I'm pretty sure that's right. And it was sobering. It was a sobering moment, but I don't remember it feeling. I don't remember taking it personally. I don't remember feeling like, oh my God, that failure is mine. I just remember feeling like, lesson learned. I trust your instincts. You know what good writing is. You know what good writing is. Don't let anybody tell you what good writing is. What was the point of 3 years at Oxford and all these years and all these books to have someone else tell you what good writing is? So I think it was that was my sort of guiding light after that, was trust your instincts.
That's so important because you mentioned you do that as an actor as well, obviously as a writer now. Is that been something you focus on outside of your career, intuition, being, maybe aware of your body, your mind, and that type of stuff?
No question. I am a witch when it comes to intuition. I am absolutely. I mean, I say that, but then that makes it sound woo woo, and I don't think it is. I'm absolutely, completely guided by my gut, and a very. I trust my instincts absolutely implicitly. I really do. They have not served me wrong.
I love that. And it's not woo woo. It's a superpower that we all have. And it annoys
Mm,
me. We're not going to talk about politics on news, but news
mm,
is always about what's going wrong in the world, all of this
mm,
stuff. We never talk
mm,
about what's going right. And we all have this
mm,
superpower within us. And I genuinely believe it's a superpower because
mm.
if I was to map out when I followed my intuition with some of the amazing things that's happened in my
Mm,
life, it's mind blowing. And everyone has
I
these, they
agree.
just might not be aware of like putting pen to paper, if that makes sense. Is
I
this a
totally agree.
concept you grew up with or you became more aware of? Do you do things to enhance it? I'm throwing everything at you, whatever's.
No, I think I have always been a very intuitive person, and I think it's just got stronger and stronger, and I've got more and more convinced of it as I've got older. But I have been intuitive from an early age. I think it was entirely intuitive on my part that I needed to become an actor when leaving Oxford. I don't think there was nothing rational about that decision. There was nothing strategic. There was nothing like, that's a good idea. Sure,
That's
spend all this money on your education and get a first class honors degree and then become an actor. Like, what? This is insanity.
yeah.
There was some intuition that was very, very strong in me that was a piece of me that felt undeveloped and that really wanted to be expressed in the world. And the same about moving to LA, which was completely chaotic and inchoate decision that I couldn't really put words to. I didn't know anybody here. Yes, I had a job, but after Mind of the Married Man finished, I could have come back to England. Most actors do. Most English actors are like, all right, that was fun. Now I'll pop back and keep on living in Brighton or Notting Hill or whatever it is, you know. And I stubbornly stayed. I just had a feeling that the life that I wanted was not going to be happening for me back in England, or not in the way that I wanted it to. That there was something predictable and safe about carrying on back home that was not the life I was after, and that it was going to be much, much harder to stay here and carve a life out and be desperately lonely and not have the infrastructure or the family or anything here.
Yeah.
Um,
The whole support
and
system.
yeah, exactly. But my God, does it mean that now, 26 years later, I look back and I'm like, wow, what a what a thing. You asked me if I'm proud of things. I'm proud of my books. I'm proud of my children, but I don't take any ownership over them. They just came out decent people, which is a treat. But really, what I'm proud of is the group of friends, the community that I have here, that I scratched and clawed out of this desert, and is just, you know, life sustaining. It really is. You mentioned this, but we lost our house in the fires in um, January of last year, and it was. I'm not going to dwell on it, but it was just catastrophic. It was
I'm sure.
unspeakably awful, and awful for 10,000 people. or homes. I'm so not alone with this story. But everyone's story is also unique to them and to me.
And
To
it's your
lose
life.
the home that we had built and constructed in the absence of any other family home here. You don't go back to mum's for Sunday lunch. My husband's parents both died when he was young, so ours was the home. This was where we did Christmas and lunch and Thanksgiving and Easter, and everybody came to ours. We just lived with open doors, throwing parties and pool parties and Easter egg hunts and the whole thing. It was a landmark, for many people, not just for me and my kids. So the loss of that was, as I say, it's just a tearing out of a huge piece of me. But the support and the love of the friends and the sense of being genuinely stabilized and held by people and by relationships that I've grown and nurtured and have nurtured me for this last 25 years. That was extraordinary. It was a really extraordinary thing.
Thank you for sharing that. And what a great take on like life and success. I know we spoke about failure, but success to you, we're not, as we said, we're not talking about the money, the views, all of this stuff. It's
Mm,
the
mm,
internal feeling, but also the friendships that you've gotten, especially when it's
mm,
so hard moving from another country. You don't know
mm,
anyone. It can be really, really difficult. And for you to talk about that, that actually makes my heart warm because that's what kind of life
mm.
is about. It's about other
Yeah.
people and good collaboration. And not just from a creative sense, collaboration of conversations, all of that. So that's a great take, and that comes
Mm,
with that comes with age and time and
mm.
wisdom. Because I'm not sure
Sure does.
I would have quite felt that earlier on as well. I
Yeah.
want to. I want to, oh, back to the intuition as well. Have you done things? I think I read somewhere years ago. I don't know if you still do it. I don't know if it was even true. Sometimes you have to be careful of what you read.
Mm,
That you've done a bit of yoga, and I don't
mm.
do yoga by any means, but that also is meant to help you intuitively as well, being aware of your body and things like that. Do you one do it? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, yoga, I haven't done it for a while actually. I think you find it, anytime you get quiet enough. I think so much of, I mean, that's what yoga is all about to me, is just getting to shavasana at the end. So just getting
Yeah,
so physically exhausted that you're just wrung out.
sleep
Um,
time. Yeah,
yeah, I do various things to get that kind of quiet, um, and focus. I mean, journaling is a real one. That's something I'm endlessly foisting pens and pads at my children, and I'm actually going to my kids' school to go and talk about the value of it, because I think
cool.
that's where you, um, that's where I find out what I'm thinking most often, is in my journal. That's where I discover myself, is on the page, in proper conversation with myself, and that's why I think um, it was just one of the most valuable things you can do, and it should be quotidian. It should be just humdrum. I mean, I'm surrounded by them talking to you. I have literally four, just five. I just can't not hold them. They're all around me all the time. And what I do, and I always recommend this to sort of people who are thinking about it and things, is make them into your, um, everyday book. First of all, make sure you always have a purse or a bag that can fit one in. But mine's got a shopping list going, a FedEx tracking number, a list of phone calls, a paragraph of thoughts about book three, notes for a short story, and then another shopping list.
Yeah,
It's all in there, so it's not precious. It's not set aside for sort of exquisite philosophizing. It's as embedded in life as life is in me. Because
yeah.
we're all things all at the same time. And my journal is a deep deep reflection of that. Was one thing that was fun actually about going through the journals, was being like, oh, I went to that restaurant, oh, look at that, I still didn't pick up the dry cleaning. That was kind of amazing. Like,
Well,
wow, you've eaten nuts and raisins for so many years, that's showing up on the list.
that's why I asked if it was cathartic, because it would be nice to go down memory lane and see what has worked, what hasn't worked, your growth
Mm,
points. Also, the
yeah.
power of pen to paper. I've done a little bit of journaling, nothing like you. Not that it's a part of me a competition, but there is definitely a healing power of putting pen to paper, typing as
Yeah.
well. But I've had the artist's way for years, and I just haven't been able to finish. I don't know what my resistance is, but so many people have
No,
brought.
but you know what? The Artist Way was my gateway drug. That was my beginning one that someone gave me back in those early days in LA when I was bored and lonely and didn't have friends, and I was between seasons 1 and 2 of the show. And a friend of mine who's a director took me to some, I think it's called the Bodhi Tree. It's the hippie bookstore that it sounds like, and
I've
full
heard
of sort
about
of
it.
self-help books and tinkling crystals as you open the door and so many joss sticks. And he took me there and he handed me the Artist's Way and he said, "You've got to do this. You've got to do this, or you're going to lose your fucking mind if you sit here waiting for the phone to ring." And thank God he did, because it was the beginning. It really, really was the beginning of the beginning. And so if you don't do the Artist's Way, it doesn't matter. It's very prescriptive. It demands artist pages every day and all these things. I would say two things that are really worth taking away is one, have a pen and paper around you all the time. And like I say, put phone numbers in it. Ruin the first page. That's my top tip. On page one, write down, literally make up a shopping list if you have to, and put 4 different things on so that you've ruined the first page. It just breaks the seal. Then you're in, then you're up and running. So that's my top tip. Get a journal, fuck it up. And the next top tip
Love
from the
it.
Artist's Way is go on the artist dates. I was thinking about this just this morning, sitting in traffic. Julia Cameron recommends this wonderful thing for artists. And by artists, I use the word in the widest sense of the word, right? Anyone with any creativity in them, which means all of us, because every single one of us is living creatively, just it depends how widely you're choosing to express it. But she says you must take yourself alone on a date from time to time and go and see whatever it is. An artist date can be going and sitting and looking at the waves for 14 minutes, and that's all. It can be going to a gallery and taking yourself there and buying yourself a delicious matcha on the way and just wandering around that gallery on your own. It can be going to a bookstore and buying a book. It can be whatever. The point is that the experience is curated and it's alone, and it is whatever will feed your artistry. So that means it cannot be a chore. It can't be the supermarket, and it's not about gossiping with a friend. And ideally, maybe it's something that you do that you haven't done before. Maybe it's a pottery class. Maybe it's aerial silks. I don't fucking know. But it's just that thing it's a little bit annoying, it's a little bit hard, but you put it in the calendar and you do it. And it's an amazing thing. I used to do it religiously when I didn't have 2 children and I hadn't lost my house in a fire. But but I was just this morning, funnily enough. So I'm going to make myself do it now, and I'll send you an email when I do.
Thank you.
I
You're
was just
empowering
this
me to
morning
do it.
thinking, it's so easy to sort of write LA off as this cultural wasteland, and all it's got is movie theaters and movie stars and palm trees. And it's not true. There's amazing artists here. There's incredible galleries and little exhibitions going on, and things at the Hammer and cool outdoor concerts and all these things. Like, it's really time for me to go on an artist date, and that isn't literary, that isn't a straight line to books, that is a little more askew than that. And anyway, so I urge you. You didn't ask me for that recommendation.
No,
I'm
I
so
needed
sorry.
that. That has fed my soul. Thank you. I can see why I also had resistance. I'm going to book that pottery class.
There you
I've
go.
put it out to the universe. Thank you. I really that would have been a great place to end, but I want to just get a few more out before we
Oh
go.
yeah,
But
sure.
that was
Cool.
beautiful. Thank you for that. Any advice with writer's block?
Journal. No such thing. Journal.
It's because you mentioned you write 7 days a week.
Yeah, I try.
And what if you can't write 7 days a week? What's your self-talk like?
Rough, not pretty. But but writing can be a sentence. Writing can be a sentence. That really can be. It does not need to be 4 hours. It doesn't need to churn out a chapter. But just going for a walk and having my phone and doing a voice memo where I just talk to myself about the thing that I'm working on and churning on. I will interview a character who's particularly tricky and won't reveal herself to me, then I will take the journal out and be like, all right, Caitlin, what do you want to talk about? And I
Oh,
will
that's
literally write down
great.
a thing where we go back and forth and she tells me what she does want to talk about. Um, you know,
That's good.
I don't, I have a complete, I'm like a horse at a fence with the word writer's block. It's the same with failure. I'm like, I won't have it. I won't have it.
Damn, that would have been another good place, Dan. But that was great. That's empowered me because I've been very busy with the podcast, and it's an excuse. I haven't put pen to paper writing this one script, and I've just been
Mm,
like going crazy because I really think like this one is particularly good. It's
mm,
early drafts.
mm,
But what I realized based on your conversation is even going on my notes or speaking out loud, or because I've write a lot of notes before I actually type it, that is
mm-hmm.
actually a bit of writing. So you made me feel a bit better about
It's all writing. Being watching a TV show and pressing pause while you take down a sentence. You wrote. You wrote for the day. You did.
Oh, thank you. You can be my mentor. It's an unpaid position, huge hours. I appreciate it. Um, I just want to tie up with Wifehouse. It's in the
Mm,
episode notes below. People,
mm.
please check it out. I forget what date it's coming up, but I
It's
also
coming
put
out
out a
April 7th. Yeah.
April 7th. So I think this podcast will be out a day or two before, but you can still, I saw there's pre-orders as well, but also
Yeah,
people
yeah.
listen to the podcast, not necessarily on the day. Any
Mm.
last things about Wifehouse? Anything you want to leave with us?
I mean, I should just tell you what it's about. So it's about a woman who chooses to leave her family, and it's told in the space of a calendar year. It begins at Christmas and it ends the following Christmas. And it's told through all the perspectives of the wife, the husband, the lover, the child, the children, and the best friend. And you move through the year, through time, but you also rewind and look at who this woman is and how she might have arrived at making such a controversial decision. Um, and I loved writing this book. I wrote it very quickly. It came out of me in a rush, which again,
Ooh,
it's like having children. They're all so different. And
yeah.
book 3 is not coming out in a rush. So I'm glad book 2 arrived, and they just arrive as they want to arrive. They really do.
Yeah.
Um, but I love this book, and I love her. It was really um, challenging and interesting and exciting to write someone as complicated as this, and it felt like a worthwhile objective. Um, I feel like men leave their families and we shrug it off, or we say it's a midlife crisis, but there's a much more sort of well trodden path for what that crisis looks like. Um, a woman does it, and it's sort of an abomination, and it goes against nature. And I was really interested in writing not necessarily a corrective to that, but an understanding of that, to try and walk in those shoes and wonder what would make you, what would take you to that brink.
That's amazing. And I'm having deja vu. I don't know if I said this at the start of the podcast. With writing a second book, correct me if I mentioned this a bit. Writing a
Mm.
second book is meant to be much harder than writing the first one, but it doesn't seem like necessarily the case with you. I don't know why that is.
No, not at all. Lion just no. They're all hard in their different ways. If anything, if I had to categorize it, I would say book 3 has been more challenging than the other two put together. But then my husband's like, bullshit. They've all been hard. I'm here to tell you, you've not come to bed once being like, this book's easy.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that it's out or coming out, and that's
Mhm.
an amazing accomplishment. And to see those two books next to each other, I hope that brought
Thank
a
you.
lot of joy because it brought me joy.
Wow.
I reckon what we'll do to wrap up the podcast is to do a quick rapid fire segment. You can take your
Okay.
time. I'm not going to comment on them because I always derail them. And yeah,
Can I
ready
look
to
things
rumble.
up on IMDb if I don't know
You
the
can. How
answer?
many episodes
Okay.
were you in? uh, I'll start with one of the hardest one. Oh, actually, no.
Mm.
What's your favorite thing to do when you're not working?
Read.
Do you have a philosophy on life you follow?
Just Love.
Okay, I said I wouldn't comment if that's cool. If you could gain any skill in the world, which one would it be?
I'd love to play a musical instrument.
Can your husband teach you?
No, I'd love to not be taught by my husband to play a
Okay.
musical instrument.
Great clarification. What lights you up?
My children.
Is there an artist or creative person you look up to, and why?
I mean, Virginia Woolf.
You've answered this, but we'll see how you go. What would you do if you knew you could not fail?
God, so many things. Surfing.
Oh, I would love to do that as well.
I'd like to do all the things where I knew I couldn't get physically hurt, because I don't believe in the failing of the other part. But like, snowboarding, surfing. I'm 51. I think these are things that feel like slightly risque at this age. But I would like try all those things. Learn to fly. I mean, there's tons of things I would try if I knew I couldn't fail, and it meant it didn't take time away from writing. So if you could create that parallel universe, if that tear in the space-time continuum is available to you, like, sign me up.
Well, like what your father did, skydiving and racing as well. You can just spend a day doing each of them. So
there we go. Perfect.
That can be your date. What was the word? I've written it down.
My artist date. Yeah.
Yeah, it's your artist date. You don't have to do that, but next big dream or goal?
Finish this damn book and then write another one.
Oh, that's exciting. Last two. If you could go back into a time when you were first starting out, what advice would you give yourself and why?
Oh, I would say travel more, and it's all gonna be okay. Take it more lightly, and it's all gonna be okay.
Good advice for everyone. Last question before I ask how people can follow you, keep up to date with you, and they can check out the book. What is the one question I should have asked you?
No, I can't do that. I don't know. I haven't got any questions. I feel like you asked them all, and we had such a good time. It was such a juicy, fruitful, lovely conversation.
I agree. I'll give you all the compliments at the end because I've been writing them all down. I'll show you afterwards how many notes I've written. Before we go, how can people follow you, keep up to date with you, check the book out? They'll all be in the episode notes below as a reminder.
Yeah. Well. You can find me on Instagram. I'm on Sonya Walger Official, and I have a website, which is probably the easier one-stop shop, which is sonya-walger.com, because that's got the bookish podcast episodes as well as my books and the aforementioned, multi-mentioned IMDb page, which I probably look at more than anybody else to remind myself what I've done.
Oh, that's amazing. Cool. That's a great place to end. Thank you so much. You're very inspiring, empowering, and you're a great conversationalist. And yeah, thank you so much for.
Thank you so much. This was such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I love how Sonya talks about, despite having wonderful success in acting, Sonya pivoted to her passion for writing and how she felt the call deep inside. That takes courage and guts, and I love it. But what's just as impressive is her attitude around success and how she doesn't let others dictate what success may look like for her. She doesn't agree to the universal standards of what success is. She's crystal clear on her values, and she defines success on her own terms. It's not about the money or the numbers. Sure, those things can be nice, but they don't control how she feels about her work or the accomplishments in creating it. And the truth is, we can only control so much. We can put in our best effort with love, care, and passion, but how the world receives it, that's out of our hands. All that matters is that we're proud and have no regrets. What's powerful is that Sonya doesn't let external metrics shape her creativity or her self-worth, because if you rely on the world to define your success, it'll never feel like enough. You'll always be chasing more and always coming up short. Success is personal, it's evolving, and it's yours to define. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. Success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. Maya Angelou. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy and life.